because what I have learned is we in this planet can only know transcendence in the body. There is no other way. You tell me, how do you know transcendence? The only way we can know anything about the spiritual world is through our body.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Free Radical Podcast. Today, I'm delighted to announce a very deep and touching conversation we just had with a psychologist, Vaishnavi, and definitely a radical personalist, Krishna Lila, Devidasi. Krishna Lila was born in Argentina, but has lived in New York for over 6 decades, a graduate of Columbia University with degrees in philosophy and counseling psychology. She built a distinguished 33-year career in the New York City Department of Education, serving in roles such as Assistant Director of Guidance. A lifelong learner, Krishna Lila integrates psychology, philosophy, and spirituality, continuously exploring evolving neurobiological insights to enhance both fields. With a sharp, compassionate approach, she specializes in systemic counseling, trauma resolution, and conflict mediation, offering workshops and trainings worldwide to bridge emotional healing with spiritual growth. So, we talked about many incredible topics with her today. We navigated through themes like disembodied spirituality, suppressed emotions, the connection between psychology and devotion and spiritual life, healing from abuse, healing from trauma, systemic forms of healing, not only individual, and whatnot. So we invite you all to the conversation. This is the Free Radical Podcast, and to support our service here, please subscribe to our channel by clicking on the bell. And if you feel inspired and nourished by the conversation, please like it, share it, drop out your comments there to keep this conversation ongoing. And without further ado, dear brothers and sisters, here is Krishna Lila. So, dear Krishna Lila, thank you so much for joining us in our Free Radical Podcast, and you are more than welcome today. Thanks for coming.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
It's our pleasure, and I'm very happy to meet with you again. I mean, we have never met in person yet, and I recall how I came to know about you. I was very curious because I was in India a few months ago, and I heard from you about you from some devotees, one devotee, another devotee, totally unrelated sources, and then eventually I'm in the Kolkata airport waiting for my flight to Bhubaneswar to Jagannath Puri, and there Mahajan is there with his wife from Spain, a common friend now of us, and we start to talk and talk, and we take a car together from Bhubaneswar to Puri, and till that you never came into the conversation, and then we meet in Parikram in pilgrimage in Jagannath Puri a few times, and at one point the conversation comes and she mentions, no, and there's one devotee called Krishna Lila, and by that time I already heard your name like 2-3 times from different sources. So I felt this is too much. I don't like to call it coincidence, but like God incidence. So that's when I
Oh no, they,
decided.
they are. They are. That's the. I think you must have been asking for something to the universe,
and
and
you and you
or
are the answer to that
Krishna,
question,
whatever
maybe.
you call. I totally believe that when one that
Hmm.
there is such a reciprocation in it.
Yes.
Thank you for God coincidences. There is
Hmm.
a better word.
So yeah, I'm so happy to have met you. We had already some sharings online, and looking forward
So
also to
now tell me, what did I say about me? Not just-
everything auspicious, everything nice, no problem. So Krishna Lila, your journey, from what you have told me and we have shared so far, your journey in life like bridges psychology and philosophy and spirituality. So I'm curious if maybe we can start here. I'm curious how these three disciplines, psychology, philosophy, spirituality, how these three disciplines came together in your life.
So they came together via trauma in a way.
Hmm.
Um, So I was, I had, not to, I came from a very emotionally neglectful and violent family.
Mm.
So the consequences of that, um, at 18 years of, I studied in a French school, a very good school, very intellectual. So my dissociation, in a way, was through books.
Mm-hmm.
My life was sitting behind a sofa and reading books.
Mm.
So my teachers were books about Joan of Arc, and of course the school was Catholic. So my saving grace was I had wonderful teachers,
Mm.
the nuns, and so the life of the saints and Jesus and religious life was very present for me. In fact, I would tell you a I don't know why, but I'm just talking whatever comes to mind. I remember about when I was about 8 years old. I was, the nuns were saying, Jesus is, loves you. So I remember going into the sacrament. You know how in the Catholic Church you have
Yeah.
the host and the sacrament, and nobody can touch that. But
Mm.
I sneaked and I took one for me
Mm.
and I took it home.
Oh.
Felt Jesus was with me.
Mm.
So I never felt disconnected from God. Um, but it was a time in my life, in about 30, that my bad experiences, I said, the hell with religion. No, no more.
Mm.
This is nonsense.
Mm.
Anyway, so many bad experiences. So
Mm-hmm.
the search, in a way, was why, like I'm in a box, and the recipe or uh, the directions to open the box are outside the box, and I'm inside the box.
Mm.
And so the search for where am I was very important. Yeah.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I went to, so that, and my major in college was philosophy. And at the end, I still didn't know the directions of the box.
Mm-hmm.
So then I went, in the meantime, I went to, psychology. I had many therapies from Dr. Tershakovic that my Spanish people know very well. I remember going there. One of the a very important, very fancy psychiatrist. Then this is like, I don't know when like 55, 60 years ago. And I said, why am I doing what am I doing? Because I know what I'm doing, and what I'm doing is not. I don't like what I'm doing. I understand now that I study psychology and philosophy that I shouldn't need the chocolate cake, but my hands are always in the chocolate. Why? Give me the directions. How do I come
Mm.
out of that? And his answer was, you come out of that when you come out of that,
Mm-hmm.
which was very frustrating, right?
Mm. I
Anyway,
can imagine. Yeah, I can imagine.
so this is Dr. Tershakovic that
Yeah.
in my workshops in Spain, they have made so much fun of it and have done little theater pieces around Dr. Tershakovic. You will
He's famous at this point, or maybe infamous. I don't know.
find
Depends.
both famous and infamous because, in a way, he was right,
Mm.
right? But at that time, there was no biological There was almost nothing
Mm,
therapy wise. The resources we have today were not
mm,
existent, so I can't
mm,
blame the poor man.
mm,
Um, and then, how did I get there? Uh, I remember being very depressed, almost to the point. I mean, the idea of suicide was always hanging in there. I can't take this anymore. And one of my colleagues, who was also a psychologist, said to me, "There is a workshop talk about God incidents.
mhm,
There is a workshop on. You want to come with me? A weekend workshop on." Visualization. I had no idea what that was, but I went. One of the,
how old were you at that time? How long ago? Approx.
probably about 30,
Okay. Okay.
something like that. I'm
More,
84 now, so
okay. More than 50 years ago. Wow.
yeah. And so it was very interesting because the woman, Shaki Wayne, and she wrote a book about visualization. The first thing she says is close your eyes. And I'm telling you this now, in retrospect,
Mm-hmm.
because at the time I said close my eyes, I have never done that.
Mm,
So I always study. I always had, very dissociated, and whoa, what's going to happen? So,
mm,
and she said, imagine what image comes to you. And the image that came to me was me dressed like with a big blue dress, but a chain like prisoners with a ball
mm-hmm.
on my foot,
Mm-hmm.
and it was opening up. That chain was opening up. So that was such an image. I didn't know what the hell
Mm-hmm.
is this. Anyway. So that was one thing. That was Saturday, and she spoke about the voice inside. And of course, I had no insight or
Mm-hmm.
experience of inside.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I end up, oh, the homework from Saturday to Sunday was go talk 100 times to that voice inside. And so I'm a very good student. I always study. I was the first in my class,
Mm-hmm.
summa cum laude everywhere, too intelligent for it. That's all I did, study. So imagine
Mm-hmm.
nothing else, just to survive. So I remember the subway ride in New York from that place to my home was about an hour. So I sat on the D train, and I said, well, I guess I have an hour. I'm going to talk to the voice inside, see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, hi, got the voice inside. I don't know where you are, or who are you, or whatever. And I tell you, I still have that experience in my. There was a voice. I thought the whole of New York heard it. I was here all the time, but you were out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know what happened inside of me that I understood everything. You believe it?
Wow. Okay.
I totally got it.
Mm.
Ah. And I remember coming home, and going into the mirror in the bathroom and seeing me for the first time.
Mm.
Ah, my God, you're there. So that was experience.
You got enlightened in the New York train. That's a good way to frame
Imagine.
the story.
That's my book. Yeah, that could be a very good book.
Just give an idea for your autobiography, just in case you were thinking about.
You see, I'm not a writer, and
Hmm.
I mean, I don't like to write. So, but anyway, I don't know if I'll ever write it. Somebody has to write it for me. Um, so anyway, um, so then I made my last appointment with Dr. Tershakovic,
Mm-hmm.
saying, I got everything now. I
Mm.
totally get it. It wasn't even minimal. What I know now to what I got then. But from the story of my life, this was
Mm.
amazing. I found me or something that was
Mhm.
me.
Mm.
So anyway, so I went to Dr. Tershakovic. I said, now I got everything. Thank you. And he said, I want to know. So then he offered me free sessions for me to tell him my experience.
Mm.
Thank God he never wrote a journal on me, the crazy woman on the train that hears voices. That's dangerous to tell that to a psychiatrist.
Mm. You are totally correct. Yeah.
So anyway, so that was,
Mm.
I think, I didn't even know that was a spiritual thing. I didn't know
Mm.
anything. So, but now I can, you know,
Yeah.
start putting things together in retrospect.
Mm.
So
Thank you.
then I went into the whole New Age,
Mm-hmm.
the tarot card, the astrology. Then I went to Hawaii with this visualization teacher for a week,
Mm-hmm.
right? And after a week, she said to me, I cannot teach you anymore. You've,
Mm.
right? Um, because really, many of the things that I ended up going to had an end to it. Like philosophy had an end to it.
Mm-hmm.
Visualization has an end to it. To an extent, how much can you be? I mean, there's strategies in a way. Now I understand, but when I was looking, it was like, whoa, this is different from the regular thing I'm studying, the regular things people are doing. There's a whole world
Mm-hmm.
of metaphysics and superphysics and quantum physics. It was
Mm.
really a fascinating.
Mm.
I don't know if this is doing anything for your intention. Swami, is this what you're asking? I don't know where I'm going. Bring me back somewhere.
No, no. Great. We are on a beautiful journey, and I'm really fascinated by hearing, yeah, your story and how it's unfolding and how you ended up being who you are now. It's always fascinating for me to witness
ah,
the miracle of awakening, not only you but in every one of us.
everyone,
It's so
everyone.
such a
So
powerful, yeah.
yeah. So anyway, what happened after Hawaii? Wow, being so old now, my memories. What happened
It's
next?
fine. It's fine. It's okay. It's okay, Krishna. It was just a general idea for us to have an idea of where are you coming from and how you have somehow weaving together psychology, spirituality, philosophy, and continue to do that. Of course, it's an
See, oh my God,
ongoing
it
task.
never ends. It's layer
Yeah.
after layer. And
Mm-hmm.
so that helped me a lot, to see that there is another realm than thinking, than concepts.
Mm-hmm.
That's that was a step forward to that. And I kept on because I was employed as a psychologist in the Department of Education. I kept on studying, and I was imagining God coincidences. Um, One person by chance she was the director of guidance, and she came to my school, and somehow she offered me a job as her assistant for staff development.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why is that important? That was like, oh my God. Because by that time I was divorced with a child
Mm.
and a dog and a minimum wage. Well, not, like making it, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, taking chances on the unknown.
Mm.
And so
Mm.
that required that I travel an hour more. And but now I realize it was this intuition. Yes, you're going to do it with less pay and more, but my God, staff development. That means I can go to any conference I want. I can hire anybody I want. I can jump from workshop to workshop,
Mm.
and I can train people.
Mm.
You know, that,
Yeah.
which I had no money to pay outside. But God, imagine that. I can't believe it. That was so amazing now that I think of it. So, uh, so in the middle of all of, so I study mediation. I train on mediation. Give it to me. I was into and training all the psychologists in New York, in the Department of Education in New York City. And so that was a great place for me uh, to not practice
Mm-hmm.
and learn also all kinds of things. In the middle of all this, one day I get a flyer from Somatic Experiencing. Oh, before that, I got a flyer, Summer Camp for Your Brain.
What, sorry?
Summer Camp for Your Brain.
Summer camp for your brain. Okay.
Well, it was perfect for a dissociated person that's always reading and thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Summer camp for your brain. If it had been summer camp for your food, I would never have gone. But for
Mm.
your brain, I went there.
Mm. Mm.
Of course, everything paid by the Department of Education.
Mm.
So this was in a beautiful place in a lake in Michigan. And I didn't know what the hell was that, but intuition. I'm going there. They were, French people. Who knows why? So when I get there with my bag at this hotel place, residence place, they said to me, "Okay, after you put your bags, you go to room 1A." And I said, all right. So I left my bags in my room, but very nice place, a very, very American nice place. And I go to room 1A, and there's nothing in room 1A but a mat on the floor. Now, for a person that always had a chair, never had a massage, that was very strange. What the hell
Mm.
is this mat on the floor? And so I stood up, and all of a sudden, a man that what looked like Tarzan to me, 6 feet 3 or something, comes in with a stick and said,
Mm-hmm.
"Hello, lay down, face down." And that's the voice inside of me. I said, "Half of you is really crazy, Christina." But
Mm.
because I was kind of frozen, I did not react. I did lay down. And I said, I don't know what he's going to do with the stick. I have no idea what the hell is going on. And somehow I thought I was going to die. But it felt very good at the same time and very painful on
Mm.
the other side. Whatever he did. Then I understood the stick was really not to beat me with it, but to hold on what he walked on my back, and God knows what he did. But I thought I was like inside a washing machine, right? Uh, and His name, he died 2 years ago. His name is Mark Lam.
Mm-hmm.
A very amazing man. So then he said, now, you go rest, and then there's lunch somehow, 1 o'clock, whatever. So this was an amazing, amazing experience. I lay down in my back, and all of the sudden in my mind, I see like a video
Mm-hmm.
with all the traumas with my mom from it was like, wow. Of course, as a philosopher, a psychologist, and I said, what the hell is this? It was totally amazing. It was
Mm.
my life in little, like a photography
Mm-hmm. Like
frame,
frames.
frames.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, when lunch came, buffet type, I see Mark Lam over there, and I rushed to him. I said, what happened? Look what happened to me. What the hell is this? And he said, oh, you have lots of trauma. You have lots of trauma. And they're all in the connective tissue.
Mm.
Now, that was like, whoa. Like another universe.
Mm.
In all the years, Columbia University philosophy, Spinoza, nobody said anything about
Store trauma in your body.
exactly.
Mm.
I mean, that was another universe. That was the a door opener.
Mm.
That was totally amazing. So I said,
Can I,
I
can
want
I
to,
ask you can I ask you something in that connection,
sure,
Krishna
sure,
Lila?
sure,
Sorry,
sure, sure.
sorry to interject.
No,
Because
no, oh,
you're giving
please.
you're giving this example of you went to this particular massage session and so much it was
It
like a
really was, yeah.
volcano erupting, like so much came from your body, no, like trauma, and this teacher told you, okay, you have trauma deeply stored, deep ingrained in your tissue, in your body.
Yeah.
So because that's, again, as you say, you never heard that before, and I'm sure many people or many devotees from our community never relate that point, that trauma can be stored in your cells. They relate that to something more subtle and not so much concrete. So I'm wondering, in connection to that, I mean, because I'm thinking in our tradition of bhakti, many times we speak about transcendence, but sometimes in that transcendence we become a little bit, like I like to call it, disembodied, and we end up practicing some form of disembodied spirituality.
Oh, that's for sure.
So if it's possible, I'd like to invite you to talk a little, to explore in this direction. No, like how do
Sure.
you ensure that transcendence, the notion of transcendence, doesn't turn into rejection of bodily experience, into the rejection of human emotions, in the name of transcendental, being transcendental, right?
Wow, that's my favorite subject. First of all, you have to experience that.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see, I would never, if somebody could have told me that 100 times, that but if I didn't go by mistake,
Yeah.
which was not mistake, now I
Mm-hmm.
know this, I was mercy all the time. But if I didn't have that experience, I wouldn't have believed it. Period, right? Because it was too out of the
Mm.
book that I
Mm.
was. I grew up. So then I asked him to. I did 3 sessions every week with him, every day for the 5 days, and then for 20 years after, because
Mm-hmm.
he lived in Long Island after he moved to California. And in fact, today at 12, I'm going to one of the disciples to have more body work. I have not, for the last, what, God knows, 50 years, I've been doing body work.
Mm.
Huh?
Interesting.
Rolfing, body work, and the transcendence is in the body. Because what I have learned is we in this planet can only know transcendence in the body. There is no other way.
Mm-hmm.
You tell me, how do you know transcendence? The only way we can know anything about the spiritual world is through our body.
Hmm. I appreciate your one-liner, which of course may be shocking for some because again, there is so much overemphasis about we are not this body, right? You have heard that a few times, so
Oh my God.
I appreciate your bringing us back to a more to question the role of embodiment in
But
devotion.
embodiment doesn't mean you identify with the body.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. I mean, by the way, I totally agree with you. Just in case, I'm
Yeah.
not arguing against it.
No, no, no. But you could argue. But anyway, that's what I learned,
Mm-hmm.
And so that experience, um, and so what happened is that now all of my practices are body centered.
Mm.
And the one practice that has helped me the most, well, I've done everything. Ray Castellino, the birth trauma is very important, etc. Now, let me see. You asked me, what should I do? Tell you about whatever or go back? So maybe I need to tell you another transcendent, another thing that happened to me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
still, even though with all of that, so uh, um, I was kind of still wanting somebody who knew something. And this is a little bit before Mark Lamb, I think. I'm not sure where this in, but this is very interesting. So I kept on saying I need a teacher, I need a guru, and at that time I was talking to some. I had no idea who Krishna was. I had no idea about Krishna, gurus, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I rejected the Catholic Church in a way, and I was like, no, in no way. But
Mm.
I was desperate enough to say I need something, and one of the issues that I had from my trauma is I couldn't speak. Of course, I couldn't. I was not free to speak so much, and I said maybe I need to take singing lessons
Mm.
because maybe that you see because I didn't know. Um, because this way, whatever. Anyway, so in finding a teacher, I was with a Sufi teacher at
Hmm.
Nanshan, movement and body. It was so nice.
Okay.
Wording.
Some circle dancing, whirling.
Oh my God, that was so cool. I found out something because I was always beep, 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 thinking, thinking, thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody said, there's always somebody that invited me to these things. And I went to this, and I don't know how I did that. My God, I was 40 at the time,
Okay.
and uh, I said, well, that's very interesting. Anyway, so this was a big room dancing, a big room of Institute for Ballet, and it was in the winter, so people left the boots and the backpacks, and it was in my mind when I entered. I said, "Oh, what an ugly place! Whatever, this is all dirty." And anyway, so we spent like 5 hours. And first time I did whirling, it was my experience was so interesting because you start going like this, and there is a point where the energy takes you. You have to let go.
Hmm.
I didn't know that. If I had known that, probably I would have gotten scared.
Yeah, and that's a whole parallel to how life operates, right? How to dance through life, letting go and letting the energy take
Well,
you. So.
you can't think when you're doing that. So,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
So God knows. Thank God this teacher makes sure that we all ladies didn't die from the experience. And after I sat down, I could not think. I said, I'm in, I'm in another place, and the whole room looked beautiful.
But you were really present there in
I
your
was
experience.
more present than I have ever been present.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
so, as a psychologist, I'm saying, what the hell happened after 20 minutes of whirling?
mm-hmm,
I couldn't think. I could
mm-hmm.
I could not go, what happened to me? What am I going to do? That disappeared. Of-
You were somewhere else. Yeah, you were somewhere else, definitely.
I was very present. And I
Mm-hmm,
live in New York, and I came out of the streets, and um, everything was beautiful. The ugly, the garbage.
mm-hmm,
So that was another gift. Whoa,
mm-hmm,
there is more to this. I was kind of finding little stones in the forest that torn, on the way.
mm-hmm.
So that was another very important thing.
Yeah. Mm.
And so, um, then with the voice, one of my Sufi friends said, this is a Hare Krishna temple, and there is a devotee there that used to be a voice teacher in Russia, and he may be able to give you voice lessons.
Mm.
I said, oh, that's interesting. And I go there every Thursday. So I said, all right, I'll go with you. And my experience was I didn't like it at all. The kirtan, not
Which temple was that one in New York? The
the
Brooklyn
Brooklyn,
Temple?
the Brooklyn Temple,
Okay.
because she said we could have dinner there, but they came out with things that looked like
Mm-hmm.
garbage can with foods, and sitting on it was a total. I said, oh, this is not for me. But anyway, she introduced me to the Russian, and there was no piano, I guess, in the temple, but imagine this, there was a Russian church across the street. So
Okay.
he found a piano there,
Hmm.
and he said, well, you come, very Russian type. We set up a time for my first singing lesson. So I went there, and he said, you have uh, no tone, and you suck.
Well, at least you was honest directly. We have to begin somewhere with the classes, so let's set things straight
Let's
first.
set things straight. So I said,
Yeah.
listen, I don't want to become a singer. I just want to exercise my voice
Mm.
anyway. So, and I had not, uh, I'm sorry.
One calling, no problem.
Let me turn this off. Oh, hold on a minute.
Mm.
I can't talk to you right now. Okay. I forgot my 8:30 friend.
Mm.
Anyway, so I go there, and I didn't know who I was, but every time went there, he was playing the Mahamantra, but I didn't know it was a Mahamantra, whatever.
Mm.
So uh, in the meantime, I was always looking for a teacher, right?
Mm-hmm.
So um, we went on for some months. I don't remember the amount of time, and that's hard. As far as, because of course he said I have no tune, no that, no this, no anyway. So one day I started asking him questions, And I was impressed with the answers. Who are we? The karma, I learned a lot of that. And I said, oh, that's interesting. So the notion of karma, I said, oh, so that alleviated me in a way because it was not my fault. I'm not crazy. It's karma.
mm,
So I found this man very intelligent. Then I found out where he just telling me what Bhagavad Gita says. This is after, right, in retrospect. But I found very interesting what he was saying.
mhm,
So at one point, I remember I said, "And how can I study this? Where do I go?" And he said, "You need a guru." I said, "Oh, no, me. I you know, I have no idea what a guru is, and it's too scary for me. Oh, you need a guru." And he gives me a picture of Prabhupada.
mhm,
And I said, I don't know where to find a guru. He gives me a picture of Prabhupada, and I put it in my purse. And again, I went to take the train. My favorite train was full of miracles all the time. So I take the picture of Prabhupada on my way home, and I look at it. I said, "Oh my God, I cannot connect with this person at all."
mm,
I said, "I'm sorry, I'm desperate. I need a guru. And when I look at you, I feel nothing. And if I don't feel anything, I can't even pray to you."
mhm,
Right? So I put the picture back, and next class, I forgot about the picture and whatever because I couldn't connect. And he would play the Maha Mantra for a while before the lesson, and I'm sitting away from the piano, and guess who shows up? Prabhupada.
mm.
Like I'm seeing you, and this is the first time I'm saying this in a recording,
Thanks for sharing it here with
because
us.
this is something that people say, "Are you kidding me?" But this is true. And he came all the way to me and touched me.
Mm,
And I started crying. The piano stopped. What's going on? And and I still love Prabhupada.
mhm,
Every morning I have the Mahamantra by Prabhupada. Can you imagine? So
mm,
I don't know what to tell you. The right the I don't know why I was not a devotee. I never chanted anything. I was not interested, and I was there for another reason.
mm, mm,
Hmm? But my relationship with Prabhupada is like this.
mhm. Wow,
I
beautiful.
loved,
Yes.
and I love him.
Mm,
Now, I don't know what else you want to know about this connection. And then he came in dreams with me, and he helped me with issues that I had in dreams. You believe it?
I believe it. Yeah.
Thank you. I, maybe that's why I told you this story. So, and then at one point, the last time I dreamt with him, he came technicolor and said, "Please," no, I don't know if he said please, "take initiation from Romapada Swami." And he was in technicolor, and then I've not dreamt with him again.
Hmm.
So I did the unthinkable. I went to Romapada Swami. I said, "Listen, I want to get initiated, and I don't want a guru at the same time." And he said, "Oh, this idea that I want to tell you what to do, the guru relationship is a conversation." So, anyway, um, so that's how I guess I enter a little bed, the Hare Krishna from the outside. I never went to an ashram. I worked 3 blocks away from the temple.
Mm.
And Ramapada Swami, in a way, my office was like a satellite of the temple. Can you
Mm.
bring paper, pencils, this, that? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it was very funny how, and this is how one day he said, you know, when he found out I was a psychologist, he started sending people to me in makes sense. So,
Mm.
and that's how I, and then asked, and he gave me the Bhagavad Gita, and I said, wow, there were some things I didn't understand and some things I got from psychology. Oh yeah, that
Mhm.
makes sense. Makes sense with the body work and everything. I
Mhm.
understood concepts when
Yeah.
mental speculation. I said, of course, that you're dissociated with that. So it was not difficult for me
Mhm.
to connect.
Mhm.
Make sense?
Total sense. Total sense. Thanks for sharing your story and your journey with us with so many intimate details also that I know they are very secret, confidential, and important for you, and you are kind of disclosing them in the open now somehow. So I appreciate your trust and your vulnerability to share so those gifts, which are, it's interesting because today also in our the day we are recording this episode, Krishna Lila, is Nityananda Trayodasi today, which is the appearance day of Sri Nityananda, which is this form of Krishna, of the divine Balaram, more specifically, that is all about unconditional love, unconditional grace, and someone like Srila Prabhupada is, yeah, generally known as someone very closely connected to Nityananda in giving unrestricted, unconditional mercy in all directions. And yeah, and you are sharing today with us on on this particular day some of these gifts that are, yeah, an extension of that grace. So I deeply appreciate that. I'm sure those who are listening to our conversation now are deeply moved by these experiences, which are, yeah, confirmations of the reality of what we are talking about, as you mentioned before. No, it's all about having experiences. No, we can also talk a lot and bring lots of theory, but we need to have, Krishna says in the Gita, Pratyaksha Bhagamam. No, this bhakti is understood by personal experience.
Yeah,
So,
and that's so the body is very important because of
mm,
that.
mm,
And
mm,
another thing that happened to me by God coincidence is that one day in my office I get another flyer, somatic experiencing Peter Levine,
mhm,
trauma, and
yeah,
and it rang in my ear.
hmm,
And I went there was a uh, before you it was a very expensive program in a way, for psychologists, to make them trauma therapists, and in a way, and so I went to the preview the one day, and the first 5 minutes I said, I'm enrolling in this. That's it. That was like Mark Lamb. Oh my God. When he said the animals in the wild never get traumatized
mhm,
because they can flee, fight, or freeze.
mhm.
And therefore, that energy, when
It's really,
somebody is released, and so
mm,
they can never be traumatized. And people
mm,
get traumatized because and so I thought of course, I couldn't beat up my mom.
mm.
And that made a lot of sense. So I
So,
became a
talk,
trauma therapist. I studied 10 years with Peter Levine.
Krishna Lila, in relation to what you just mentioned about trauma and the example you gave about releasing the energy, is there a way to define trauma as unreleased energy, so to say, that
That's
we
how
we
I
had some
define it. You
we
know
had some
what?
experience and something happened inside of us despite what happened outside, but whatever happened inside has not been properly expressed, acknowledged, released, and somehow
Yeah, you have
that
to
becomes
feel it.
trauma basically.
You have to feel it again.
Mm-hmm.
Their
Mm-hmm.
memories, you know, there's a lot of books, and people could. Peter Levine has books.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
all biological.
Mm-hmm.
So what? One of my wonderful students um, here in New York kind of said, "Oh, they're like ice cubes,
Mm-hmm.
frozen." And because I said, as the ice cubes melt, there's love. You will feel the love.
Mm-hmm.
So it's energy that's frozen, and
Mm-hmm.
it will keep on coming to you unconsciously or consciously until you feel it. That's it.
So
And once you feel it, and the feeling is not all of the sudden and not all together, it
mm,
has to be the mantra of Peter Levine has always been less is more.
mm-hmm.
So 1 inch at a time, because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise it would be too overwhelming.
Yeah, yeah. So trauma is frozen energy. That's a good one liner to describe it. And
Ice cubes.
ice cube, yeah, emotional ice cube. We have a whole freezer inside of us of
Yeah.
those, right?
Yeah.
Whole iceberg, not only ice cube. Yeah. So yeah, I'm thinking, of course, in connection to spiritual practice and our particular school, but beyond our particular school, sometimes not only myself, but I hear talking with people this idea of, okay, I feel like numb in my spiritual practice, no? Like if, and I'm asking you this, if someone feels like numb, like I'm not feeling anything, I'm not experiencing anything, where should they start to reconnect? No, because I'm thinking, hearing what you say, that sometimes we are practicing spiritual life and we just want to feel, I don't know, ecstasy, and we have want to feel the highest of the highest, but probably before reaching that experience, we may need to feel the trauma that is there stored and needs we need to go through it first, and it may do not feel that glorious, that spiritually advanced, but in one sense it's part of the journey. It's very healing, and it's very deep, and it's very human, and it's very opening. So what do you think about that? Before trying to feel all these super advanced transcendental
So
emotions, we
I
need
think
to
that,
go
that
down and be grounded.
the
Sorry.
desire to feel is a wonderful motivation to engage in the road to transcendence.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's all the myth, the journey of the hero, right?
Yeah, Joseph
And
Campbell. Yeah.
like, you know, the Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm.
This is a wonderful myth,
Yeah.
American
Mhm.
myth. You
Yeah.
know, he's Dorothy, you know, in Kansas. Nobody understands me. So I'll have to leave home somewhere over the rainbow. But what happens at the end of her road? She comes home again,
Yeah.
transformed.
Yeah. You have to leave home to rediscover it with new eyes, right? And you have to confront the
So,
unknown, basically.
so and the unknown is right inside the body, so we
Mm.
don't feel, I mean, my experience is that's why you know, I'm going to continue for years, 20 years, 3 times a day with the pandemic online, it's like deep, to really feel every cell in the body is consciousness. There is no body and spirit. It's all one.
Mm.
And if we could feel that, we are not going to be, I want to be happy over there,
Mm.
says you're not happy here.
Yeah. Yeah. Not
Because
there's no need
otherwise,
to.
right now, I don't care about over there.
Mm. Yeah, if we cannot be over there right here, we will never get there, so to
Well,
say. The
yeah,
over there starts right here.
like death is walking with me all the time, right? Who knows if I die tonight? Um, I'm not worried about that I'm going to be happy over there.
Mm,
I am happy now.
mm.
Am I
Yeah.
going to be unhappy? There is a way that I don't care. I don't care. It's, it may sound very weird.
No, 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 no. I get the point. I totally get
And
the point.
I'm not saying that at the moment of death, God knows, I may have pain and curse everybody. I don't know. But right now, in even thinking about it, and it's not that I'm searching for anything either.
Mm-hmm,
The body has the jewel and the store of magnificent love is in the meditation. In the meditation, meaning in paying attention to
mm-hmm,
we are movement. This is very important. We are movement, energetic movement,
mm-hmm,
and to pay attention to the movements and be with them instead
mm,
of that is joy to the maximum
mm.
that I
Hmm.
can feel. Hmm?
I like your word movement, Krishna Lila, because I usually like to. Sometimes our tradition is called as the Hare Krishna movement, no? But many times we identify the word movement just with like an institutional uh, group, so to say, organization. It's a movement. But I like to say this whole movement was begun by Sri Chaitanya, who was feeling so much inside his heart. So there was so much moving him inside, and that took him to move out externally to dance and to celebrate life. Another
Yeah,
type
but
of
the
movement.
movement is not movement like this.
Hmm.
Is the movement inside. And so
Hmm.
what I found in some of the devotees is that they just in the mind they have divided the body and the mind, and
Mm.
as that makes sense. And at some level we need to be coherent. We have to have the intelligence, the
Mm.
emotional heart, and the body together as
Which,
one
yeah,
movement
yeah.
that comes from the inside out. It
Which by
doesn't come.
sorry, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
I was just going to say because you used the word coherence and you were talking about body, mind, or spirit, matter, and trying to put them together instead of creating a dividing line. And just yesterday, talking to a friend of mine, we were exploring the etymology of the word coherence. And coherence means to stick together, actually.
Mm.
Interestingly, like you are
Whoa.
speaking about like connecting things instead of keeping them separate. So coherence means to stick together. That for me means, yeah, to see how everything in reality is
It's
related.
not.
It's related. It's not separated. It's not isolated from each other. And I agree with you that in our particular, like a constructive criticism to my own tradition, that many times we have done some type of disservice to our own tradition by overemphasizing matter and spirit, like utterly opposite to one another, utterly separate to one another, and creating like isolated units instead of a whole, no? A whole that includes
Well, that's
everything.
trauma. Isolated. Those are parts. We are whole.
Trauma is that what like separated parts, you mean, like
Yeah, they're
non-integrated.
separate. This work about the inner child is that there is a part of us that usually what happens is the attachment at the beginning of life is a superpower. But when it's not there, all of those stay in the cells as memories,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like my mom had, I didn't know that. Well, it took a while for me to come back home like Dorothy and understand my mom. But a
Mm,
child does not understand why mom runs around trying to kill you with a knife.
mm.
There is fear,
Yeah,
right?
course, of course.
And then that fear is any woman uh, at work will give me fear, but it
Mhm.
wasn't the woman,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
it's only through trauma that the therapy, that I could feel that. And now, the woman I'm going right now is a woman. My wonderful Mary Abrams is a woman. Makes sense? So
yeah.
that the memory is not the one that's acting in real time. And
Hmm.
to me, that's conditioning, which I connect that with this, with the scripture. Are you working in a conditioned way? When you
Mm.
separate, you do that. You are conditioned. You're working automatically by
Mm.
a trauma and not what do I want in coherence.
Yeah.
Huh? In tune with actually, because we are water, 80% water, we are moving and connecting with other realms
Hmm.
if we allow it. When we
Hmm.
have so much trauma, we cannot connect. So we
Mm.
cannot connect spiritually unless we release that, or partially, because we are not open
Exactly. Exactly.
for that conversation.
Yeah, we are, as you say, we are frozen. We are ice cubes. So
I suppose.
we are not flowing like water, so to say, that creates like a natural conversation and dialogue with everything. No, I always like to think, and it may sound too poetic, but for me, ultimately, poetry is the way, the natural language to describe reality, and it's everything is a conversation, everything is a dialogue. No, ideally, we may not feel that, we may not see that out of our ice cubes, emotional,
Yeah.
no, frozen bits, but ultimately, when we melt, when we awaken, when we whatever word we want to use, we start to realize, wow, everything is so alive, everything is so much in movement, everything is so much in dialogue with one another, and I'm part of that conversation, basically, right? So it's so important to become aware of what gets in the way of the conversation, that I'm not listening anyone talking, and I'm not talking and don't feel I'm participating of this cosmic dialogue, so to say, no? So yeah.
Yeah, and that cosmic, there is a silent level of being, and that's what I have found in the body, in getting into the body, that there is a whole world to explore. My
Mm.
first year in continuum, I would fall asleep
Mm.
in this body and I remember going to the teacher, said, I'm so sorry, I'm falling asleep. And she said, oh, because you have so much stress that you cannot be awake for the 2 hours
Mm.
of explore. Okay, but go ahead, stay, and now I can stay 2 hours with full attention.
Mm-hmm.
2 hours, I mean, that's a luxury.
Mm.
2 hours paying attention to the inner movements without saying anything.
Yeah, that sounds like contemplation for me, no? Like in mystical Christianity, they use the word contemplation, which is
I
basically just being there, being present, being, and paying attention, as you say, listening
But then there
very.
is some interesting side effects from that.
From what?
Like, I trust my intuition now
Mm-hmm.
because this contemplation have connected me to the unconscious,
Yeah.
and it's very subtle. And if you don't slow down, that's one thing that we learn in trauma, that the mind goes like this at this BBB level. And in
Mm.
order to do trauma therapy, you have to be very slow
Mm.
because the body doesn't understand this,
Mm.
right? But at this silent level of quietness, you could pay attention to a whole bunch of things that exist that at this level you don't know.
And I can imagine how much that mind speed gets even faster in the world we are living now with all these social media dynamics and bombarding of so many things, and how much more there is a need to slow down, to see and to hear and to pay attention to things that are
Yeah,
there, but we won't see them unless we acquire the proper speed, so to say, slow down to it. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Krishna Lila, I'm wondering, you have been working, as you mentioned before, your own Gurudev invited you to do that service, working as a psychologist with the community, the Bhakti Krishna consciousness community for many years already. So just want to ask you which are some of the most common psychological challenges that you have observed in the Vaishnava practitioners uh, that come to your mind? Which will be the top three?
Yeah.
So if we have to select a few,
If I have
maybe you
divided,
already we were already mentioning them now. I don't know. You tell me.
you already what mentioned?
Maybe we already talked about all the things we were talking now are some of those main challenges, or maybe there are other ones. So.
Well, I live in New York and I have a whole bunch of students from India. So I'm
Mm,
going to separate the Western. I feel a big difference between the Western devotees,
mhm.
American devotees, and the ones that come from India.
On a psychological level, how their
Oh, yeah,
mind works.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah, that's
So,
an important point to make. Please go ahead.
yeah, in order to be a Western devotee, you have to give up your religion and your family. At least the original ones 30 years ago, I cannot
Mm,
talk to my parents.
mm.
Whoa.
That sounds like a little too much, right?
So, okay, that already, because there is another, not only the body, there's also the system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the family constellations,
Family constellations, yeah.
the system to put order in your system. So a lot of the devotees who reject their parents,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember dealing with that a lot, like 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
People who then 20, 30 years later still crying, how come I did that? Makes sense? It,
Yes.
it's because they were taught, and I think what, if I can summarize, is issues in attachment,
Mm-hmm.
looking for some 4 or 5 things that are important in order for a human from 0 to 8 to function, is to be seen, to be heard, to be protected, um, and to be supported, right? That
Mm-hmm.
those are essentials. If they didn't get that, they will come to the temple looking for mom and dad and
Mm-hmm.
looking for that attention. And guess what? They would find the same issues that they had in the family. So it's a parking lot for
Mm.
Western devotees of acting out, and they never get it because what happened in the family, you would never get
Mm-hmm.
back because you at that point, that ice cube that was formed at that moment in the past.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And if you want to live in the present, you have to go love that ice cube and warm it up.
Mm-hmm.
As simple as that.
Yeah. But first you have to acknowledge that you have the ice cube, which may be, yeah, painful and difficult, but necessary, right?
Well, you think it's painful.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would say is, that was my experience. In my first sessions in somatic experiences, oh my God, I was scared all the time. The pain, and for 5 minutes of pain, I live 40 years of suffering.
Okay, sounds like a
Doesn't
good
make any
deal.
sense, because the pain that you don't do will make you suffer and repeat it, repeat it, repeat
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, and the 5 minutes give you love and joy. Because the
mm,
moment the ice cube melts, what is there,
mm,
right? We are
mm,
love, so that love is more present.
mm, mm. Yeah.
So I think that a lot of the issues of trauma are for the Western devotees, and that's why they run to get something,
Mm-hmm.
and then they don't get it, which is a marvelous thing, so that they can go inside and find it. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm so happy when they say the guru fell down. Good for you, you know. And actually, he didn't fall down. You didn't see him.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm?
What
Nobody.
did
I
what did
don't think nobody
what
falls down.
okay, great. I don't personally like the expression falling down
No,
either.
me
Okay.
either. I said
I,
that's impossible.
yeah,
Once you find once you find love, you don't.
I like
I
to
don't.
quote yeah,
Yeah.
I like to quote one expression from a mentor of mine. He would like to use the expression falling upward, not
Yeah.
falling down. No?
No. I to me is because that happened to me. You know, like all disillusionments, you have to have them. You
Hmm.
have to have them to see reality and to see truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so with anybody, with a boyfriend, like I have a grandson, and he had the first girlfriend, and they broke up, and he was like, oh, after all I did. And I said, if you did it to get something out of her, you know, um, then it was selfish of you. That was not. So it's you know what are we doing in a way, and then and then I show him, look, there were all these signs that you refused to see for a couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is learning. Next time
Yeah.
you're going to pay attention more, and it's not that you didn't see it because you're blind. It's that was your first love, so of course you're going to not see
Mm.
because
Mm.
you needed something more important. So take the important thing that you have. Does that make sense? So we do the same thing with, oh, God will solve the problem, come Jesus, you know.
Mm.
Hmm?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. How much many of you mentioned God and how we approach God with certain filters and many times our past wounds, our unacknowledged ice cubes, so to say, make us see God in a certain way, right? Our idea of God has a lot to do with how we see ourselves, which is our own
Yeah.
uh, healed trauma or unhealed trauma, and we project not only on God, of course, on a community, on a guru, on a couple, on everything and everywhere, because we cannot but in Sanskrit there is this line say Atmavan manjate jagat, that one sees the world according to how one sees oneself, right? So
Oh, well, this is the whole theory of projection
mm-hmm,
in
yep,
psychology. We are
yep,
all projecting.
yep,
So we actually don't see each other. We manipulate each other because of that. Uh,
mm-hmm,
uh, and one of the things that I took as my psychological whatever tool, if
mm-hmm,
you could say, is Bhaktisiddhanta's when faults in other delude you and disturb you,
mm-hmm,
introspect, find
mm,
fault with yourself. No one can hurt you unless you hurt yourself.
mm-hmm,
That
yeah,
is so beautiful. So when somebody comes with something, how are you hurting yourself in this? What are
mm.
you projecting, right?
Like inviting persons to take responsibility for themselves, basically,
You're right.
and be empowered by doing that.
I mean, Bhaktisiddhanta was a genius psychologist, and
Mm-hmm,
he made it so short and sweet.
mm, mm,
I mean, I don't know anything. I don't know. I know a little bit about Bhagavad Gita, but I'm not into the scriptures. But but people invite me to the classes of scriptures. I find them fascinating. They're very psychological. Every time
mm-hmm,
I read something. It's like that, right? It's a
Yeah.
projection, and they knew it. In other words, than psychological. So it seems to me that there is an end to psychology, like in the Western world. Then you have to go to transcendental, and that's what has been my journey, where the transcendental has come to knock, and
Mm-hmm.
and and, and both became coherent after a while.
Hmm. I'm thinking about you're mentioning about the end of psychology, or the, so to say, the limits, the reach
Yeah.
of psychology, because that's, I think it's important, because we are talking here about the importance of healing and psychological wholeness, but also it's fair to acknowledge psychology has its limits. Now, it's not like the all in
Oh,
all.
it has its
And,
limits.
and
Yes.
like one teacher of mine will say, most of our problems are psychological, and most of the solution to those problems are spiritual. He will
Yeah,
make
but
that
they
type of,
need to be connected.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
They need to be, because psychology has a limit,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why there's the transpersonal people. Like Hellinger was like a type of mystic too. You know, there are people that went to the limit to something else. So, but it has to, I don't know. I'm not an expert in anything,
Mm.
so I'm just a traveler.
That's totally fine. We're all pilgrims of the journey of life together, no problem. Krishna Lila, how does Krishna consciousness look like when it is fully integrated with our humanity, rather than using spirituality as an escape from our humanity? How does, in your opinion, how does it look like to for someone to be a devotee or a spiritual practitioner with full integrated humanity, instead of a dysfunctional escapist person using spirituality to avoid unresolved trauma?
Whoa, what a question! My brain is going.
Sorry, sorry, sorry,
What are you doing to me? Hold on.
sorry, sorry. I'm too complicated. I know I should
No, hold
simplify.
on, hold on. No, you're not too complicated. You may be complex, but not complicated.
I
Um,
know I need to simplify many parts of myself. I'm
but
sure.
I think I get it. Say it again.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. How does it, in your opinion, how does it look for Krishna consciousness, for spiritual practice? How does it look when it is fully integrated with our
okay.
humanity?
Can I just talk about my experience?
Of course,
And because that's all I can talk about.
of
Mm,
course.
so at the beginning of my practice, I will go through the strategies I learned in psychological school. You know how to listen, you paraphrase, you do this, you do this,
Mm-hmm,
you do that,
mm-hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
so I will sit and make sure that I follow that. And
Mm-hmm,
people did feel listened to
mm-hmm,
with all my ice cubes. But as my
mm-hmm,
ice cubes were melting,
mm-hmm,
something like, whoa, I see you. So, what happens is when you have too much trauma, you don't see the other. You may know the strategy of nonviolent communication, but you're not there.
mm, mm,
Your love is very small.
mm-hmm,
Your attention to the other is very small.
mm.
Is that making sense?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
So, as and I still go to therapy, and I go to body work all the time.
Mm,
I mean,
mm,
I want to open all the cells of my body. So what has been happening, what happens is as we contemplate, and the ice cubes melt, right?
mm-hmm.
Um, I'm no longer me sometimes.
What do you mean by that?
I'm not thinking, am I using the strategies or not? I'm very present for the other.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm very present to myself because there are people, my teachers are more present than me. I mean, I'm not saying I'm the presentest of all people,
No, 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 son.
but
It's clear.
from dissociated to being as present as I can, does that make sense?
That it may.
Then I feel, I sense and perceive directly what's happening with the other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I can connect with that. And the it is the and also have Prabhupada right behind me and inside of me. Like this is my Krishna consciousness. Understanding that Prabhupada came to pick me up to do some service.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
even talking to you, I'm with Prabhupada right now and I feel him inside.
Yeah.
Is that
I,
making sense?
just hearing the tone of your voice breaking, it makes full sense to me. Yeah.
So that's my Krishna conscious. That everything I have learned,
Mm.
I'm listening to you fully here, not worrying, am I looking good? What's in it for me? Is that making sense? So that's what I mean, that you are not, that the sense of false ego is a lot less.
Mm-hmm.
And the sense of, um, I don't know, the sense that, gee, Prabhupada, you are amazing. You
Mm-hmm.
could pick up a psychologist from the whole worst place in the planet, and you have, I don't even know what's going on, that kind of thing.
Mm.
So
Mm.
that I don't know if that's enough for you to.
Of course, it's more than enough. More than enough, and your tears falling beautifully from your eyes, Krishna Lila, were like you are making my plate full. So with your honest presence, and yeah, I was really also reflecting about you make this simple point, but it made some click to me as well about uh, being present and perceiving directly. I mean, the more present we are able to be, the more we can have an actual direct experience, right? And many
So
times
this
in
is this.
my personal travels and trying to share with devotees, some of the main obstacles are many times lack of experience, lack of having some personal first-hand moving undeniable experience. But that's so connected to what you mentioned. Okay, lack of presence, and why I'm not present, what's getting in the way of my presence, which are the ice cubes that
Mhm.
freeze me and do not allow me to be me and melt and be there. So yeah, presence is such an important word, at least for me, especially the last few years. It has become like one of my favorite words to describe, as you are doing, Krishna consciousness. Okay, what's Krishna consciousness for you? Well, presence could be a good word to describe it. No, like we say so many times, right? Like for example, in the holy name of Krishna, the Maha Mantra, or philosophy will say, Krishna is fully present in his name. Of course, Krishna is fully present everywhere. He's omnipresent. But sometimes we do this emphasis, Krishna is fully present in his name. And that's great. So now the other part of the equation is I have to be fully present myself, no? While I'm
Yes.
chanting, while I'm doing anything, because he's already fully present. The question is
Can we see him?
where I am. I'm hearing him, I'm seeing him. Sometimes I make this joke when we say, Krishna, where are you? I'm not seeing you, I'm not hearing you, but actually he's fully present. So the question is, where are you? But where am I? Right?
So I'll tell you another story. Uh, finding when in New York there was no constellation, I was lucky enough from my trauma therapy to have somebody from Europe
Mm-hmm.
coming to learn somatic experience, but he also constellator. And in my first constellation, I said, oh my God, this is the missing part of psychology.
Could you briefly describe, I mean, for our audience, what do you mean by constellation? What do we mean by family constellation? Because
So
not,
we,
not
okay,
everyone is informed about that. Briefly.
it's family or whatever. So we are not just my body, me, myself, and I. We are part of a family soul,
Mm-hmm.
so family energetic,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
We
in most
exist in a context. Yeah.
in a context, like in, I guess in your tradition, I don't even can say my tradition because I'm not deep into the tradition.
Our tradition, Krishna.
Our tradition, okay, even though um, I'm, t- in, there is parampara, right? There is a
Mm-hmm.
certain way of doing things. There is order
Mm-hmm.
in the soul. So if you think you're better than your guru, what happens in your tradition?
Mm-hmm.
The,
Problem.
the mercy doesn't come down because
Mm-hmm.
you're out of order.
Mm-hmm.
So what Hellinger said, the founder of in practice of this, he learned all this from the Zulus. He went to convert the Zulus, and the Zulus converted him, I think, into
Okay.
um, that where there is order, love flows.
Okay.
So the orders of love, he calls them, right?
Okay.
So there is a reason why all religions say honor your father and your mother.
Mm. Yeah.
So when I went to, I hated my mother
Mm.
until I stepped in a constellation.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. How you can honor father and mother when you've gone through abuse and probably your feelings are not precisely I honor them, but I hate them.
It's, I hated my mother, so I had
Mhm.
to deal with the hate, the ice cube, and when the ice cube melted,
Mm.
then I could I the child in me hated my mother, and
Mm.
he was right.
Mm.
The adult me can see my mother.
Mm.
The adult me can relate to my mother.
And probably can relate to the your mother as a child herself, right?
Uh, as a child, and what happened to her makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. So uh, it's both. Hey, my inner child, of course you hate it because you needed protection and you didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And you couldn't run away. You couldn't do the fight and flight response. So it's all
Mm.
like this.
Mm.
But you actually didn't hate your mother. You just
Mm.
were angry and hateful or whatever.
And
Because you could,
before that, behind that angry and anger and hate,
oh,
there
there
was
is
pain,
love.
probably.
There's pain and there's
That's
also
it.
attachment and love. There is
Mm-hmm.
a profound love for parents that is
Mm-hmm.
biological and
Mm.
there,
Mm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
touching that love is what constellations do. Is the getting into the unconscious and the subconscious of your issues that you think you know them, and
Mm.
that's failing of psychology. That's the limit of psychology, right?
Mm.
That
Mm.
some people make a living 30. I know that I mean, I am a reformed psychologist. I
Okay.
had to
What?
reform
Yes.
the sense that I will become the mother of my patient. For
Mm-hmm.
goodness sake, what the hell is that?
Mm.
Huh?
And that
Maintaining that
and that
patient in the wrong place forever. Hmm?
yeah, yeah.
Is that making sense? So I don't know. So the constellation is a direct view in a way of what the unconscious loyalties are,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like it's interesting that sometimes like for example, I don't know why I have a whole bunch of this month has been suicide thing. that sometimes people, one little girl from the Holocaust,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the grants the a mother of a girl that committed suicide directly from the Holocaust, because the grandmother, one of them died in the Holocaust, and the other grandmother never talks to her,
Mm.
for example, right? And the little girl committed suicide. I set it up in the constellation, and the girl that commits suicide goes right to the Holocaust victims
Yeah.
because they were not seen.
Mm.
Imagine the power of being seen.
Mhm.
Huh?
As simple as that sounds, being seen. But if you are not being seen,
Then
your
somebody in the
existence
family,
is not
some,
validated, basically. Yeah.
right? So somebody out of love, the little girl says, "Don't worry, I see you. I'll be
Mm-hmm.
with you." So
Mm-hmm.
in the soul part, of course, we are not the body. They don't care about dying.
Mm.
Yeah, there is a communication that's beyond.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm?
Yeah. And I'm thinking, Krishna Lila, also how this concept of family constellations, of course, mostly applies and should be dealt with our biological family, but also you mentioned the idea of parampara. I'm thinking how, on some level, also we can think about that. Also, if you join like a spiritual family or like a spiritual group or lineage, of course, there is masters and teachings being sent generation after generation coming to us, but also there's unresolved trauma in spiritual
Oh,
groups, in
yeah, I
spiritual
guess
lineages.
so.
So we have our own family constellations to do in connection to that as well, probably to our spiritual communities. I'm joining a particular group, spiritual group. So what's the ancestry of that? No? What's the background of that? No? What's the thing that have not been fully
Fully,
seen,
fully
acknowledged?
seen. So,
Oh,
important thing is to be fully seen. As
mm,
much, I don't know if we see everything, but
mm,
at least to have peace
mhm,
and to
mhm.
see what Krishna wants you to see.
Yeah.
And by the way, another interesting thing in my life after I saw that, as a psychologist, when I said the first constellation, I said, "Oh my God, what is this? You
Mhm,
step, some representative is feeling just like my mom. What is wrong with what's that? That's
mm,
another extra limit in psychology, right?
mm.
Huh? That
Yeah.
how come there's so, you put somebody, you are my mother, and this person behaves like my mother.
Mm,
What is that? That's very interesting.
mm,
So for me, family constellations was the practice of becoming present and talking to God or to Krishna, whatever, right? Because after a while, I understood, hey, I cannot do this by the numbers, by the
mhm,
book.
mm.
You need to kind of perceive directly here.
Yeah.
Hmm? And I say, Krishna, I need not Prabhupada. I mean, I don't call Krishna because I have no idea who Krishna is outside a concept, right? But Prabhupada is somebody I can
Relate
connect
to.
with,
Mhm.
relate to, because he does help me.
He
For
clearly did. He clearly did, for sure. Yeah.
So I say, send me a play. I need to, how do I do this? I went to Germany, like down Van Kampen. How I say, how these people perceive and do this? How I can do this, and that's when I went. I ended up going to Continuum. I said, oh, that's the way. I need to contemplate in silence to
Mhm.
actually perceive. So for me, doing constellation is like martial arts practice. It's like, whoa, I'm going to talk to God because now I have to go there.
Mm-hmm.
and say, I don't know what the hell I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
but I need to listen. I don't know what's going on. And it took a lot because I remember at the beginning I said, how about if nothing happens and the worst happens?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, you're going to have to say, sorry, I don't know what I'm doing. That's the end of the constellation. See you later. You have
That's
to face
yeah.
defeat, Krishna Lila, otherwise you can't do this.
Uh,
Is that making sense?
yeah, so much vulnerability has to be implied in that, no, in showing up for who you are, releasing the result, not knowing what will happen, nothing will happen, everything will happen, and being shown whatever you need to be shown. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, that's Bhagavad Gita, see? When
yeah.
we read Bhagavad Gita,
Battlefield,
the
show
results
up.
just show up. And constellation has been a way in which I could actually practice to show up.
Entering Kurukshetra, yeah, over and over
I
again.
have
Yeah,
no idea over and over again. And and that is an amazing gift that I have gotten to facilitate, and has been an amazing practice of showing up and really not knowing what's going to happen next.
yeah. Like we are doing right now for in our conversation. We had no clue where we will go, where we will end, and here we are, still alive with so many beautiful, so many beautiful gifts that came. So yeah, thank you for being brave and courageous, Krishna Lila, and showing up and sharing the gift of your life story. And maybe as we are wrapping up our conversation, I don't want to take much more of your time, but in my previous podcast, I kind of inaugurated a closing section to my conversation because in our tradition, there is some saying in Sanskrit which says Madhurena Samapayet, which basically means if you are talking about something, whatever, Madhurena Samapayet means end with something sweet. Sometimes that's applied to eating also, no? End with something sweet, but also sometimes apply with to talking and with something sweet. But what I've done is inaugurating a slightly different section in Sanskrit that will be called Ushnena Samapayat, which is end with something hot or spicy. And by that, what I mean, I will present to you a series of, if we may call them, not hot questions, but some questions that are like right to the point.
Ah,
Hot,
that's very cool.
hot in that sense, right to the point.
Ah,
So, so we
hot,
conclude on
in
a high
English,
note.
hot cold questions like
Going from the ice cube to the hot
cold.
point to balance to make the high ice cube melt. Let's
Right.
take it. Let's put the
You know,
temperature
like
a little high.
these people that walk through the fire codes.
Hmm.
That's your question. Okay, ready.
So short questions, and I'm expecting from you short answer also. Like
Okay,
the question will be short, the answer will be short, and we have a few of them to
okay.
wrap up our conversation. Right? Okay. Ready? You're ready. You're always ready. No problem. I don't even have to ask that. Always showing up to the unknown. So the first one, what's the biggest lie that people tell themselves about spirituality?
If I chant Hare Krishna, all my problems are solved.
Great. Perfect. Right to the point. Second one, which is harder, facing your shadow or facing God?
Facing your shadow.
What's the first step out of spiritual bypassing?
Facing your shadow.
If you could erase one misconception about Krishna consciousness, what will it be?
The Guru has the authority.
Okay. One belief that you held 20 years ago that you no longer hold.
I want to be somebody. I don't know, get hold.
Sorry?
I want to be somebody.
Yes. Okay. What's the hardest truth that spiritual seeker must accept?
You are nothing.
Hmm. What's a psychological wound that most spiritual practitioners do not realize that they have?
I have an emotional unmet need to be loved, to be seen, to be felt, to be protected.
Okay. Let's go to two more and we conclude here. What's I end up the torture chamber. what's one thing what's one thing that a devotee should stop doing to their body?
Starve it from emotion, from joy, and from love.
Okay. And what's one question that you wish more people ask themselves?
Where is my attention going?
Amen. Thank you so much, Krishna Lila. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry for the unexpected closing. I didn't
No,
tell you anything
I
about that.
love it. You should do that every
But
time. That's
yeah.
fun.
Thank you. With your
Yes.
blessings, I will continue doing that. And you did very well, by the way. So thanks so much for that.
I
And before
pass.
we just, you did. So before we put our conversation to rest, not to sleep forever, just to rest for a moment, I don't know if you would like to leave our listeners with one powerful takeaway, be it a challenge or a fresh perspective or a dose of inspiration, what it will be, whatever you would like to share to conclude, to put the discussion
Uh,
to a close.
Something that I learned is that, um, like questions that I get from my students, when would I get something? Forget it. This is not about getting anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's engaging on a path.
Mm-hmm.
And there is, maybe you could translate a wonderful, I would leave this, a wonderful poem, Caminante, no hay camino, se
Se
hace
hace
camino
camino al
al
andar.
andar. So if you could translate that,
Oh,
that's
that's my challenge now to conclude. Okay.
yeah.
So it's a famous poem in Spanish. Of course, both of us speak Spanish, and we were saying, okay, you walker, there is no path, but the path makes itself while you are threading the path.
Yeah,
Something like something
something
like
like that. Yeah. So is it, and I think the scriptures say that is the determination.
that. Mm-hmm.
It takes determination. The hero needs to have the princess or the prince. I want and just do the journey, and then get surprised by the God incidences that happen to you.
Hmm. Wow. So beautiful to be on the journey with you, Krishna Lila, and to have such wise elders blessing our path. So thank you so much for joining us
Oh,
today.
thank you.
We are very blessed and very grateful for your presence in everyone's life. So looking forward to seeing you soon again. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.